Well, that we could have Senator Serrano and Assemblymember Kellner here. We have a long agenda, but I think a lot of the topics on the agenda may be covered in our discussion with our two elected officials. Let me just begin by giving a brief highlight of some of the accomplishments that we have had in the last couple of weeks. Within the last couple of weeks, we've gotten press coverage by the New York Times and the Albany Times-Union for our rally last week. We've had Senator Carolyn Maloney send a representative to the RIOC Board meeting last week, making a very strong statement. Congresswoman, what did I say? Senator. Sorry. Congresswoman Maloney sent a representative making a very strong statement in support of our efforts to get elected officials on RIOC. And we also had collected almost 500 signatures on our petition. So those are just a few of the highlights. The purpose tonight is to get feedback from Senator Serrano and Assemblymember Kellner on how we can capitalize on that progress as we move forward towards our objective of getting RIOC elections regularized and get a firmer commitment than we have had apparently so far. So I think I'd like to just start by perhaps with Senator Serrano just giving us a few words on specifically what can we do to capitalize on that that progress in terms of your legislation, in terms of other things. What can we do to capitalize on what we've done so far?
Well, first of all, I want to thank all of the members for giving me the opportunity to come by and say hello. I'm very fortunate to have my colleague in government, Mike Kellner, who I've known for many, many years, long before either of us became state representatives. He was out there helping me back when I was a city council member and first running for the state senate. And the wealth of information that Micah has is something that I feel very fortunate to come to him and get to draw upon his experience, especially when it comes to the island, especially when it comes to a lot of the inside baseball, which I have a lot of times difficulty in tracking down. There's a number of things that we've accomplished over this last session. I am pretty excited about the number of things. Marriage equality and many other things of that nature, extension of rent regulations. It was a pretty productive session, and under the leadership of Governor Cuomo, we saw a one-time budget. We saw a lot of different things that I thought were extremely important. However, recent events involving the island, involving the RIOC Board, I know that's what's on everyone's mind, and I think it's probably best that I address those issues. And see if there's any questions or anything that I can be helpful with that. And I'm sure that we'll hear a lot more from the Assembly member as well. From a Senate perspective, as your Senate representative, I was sort of caught by surprise by this change of the board director. I was only made aware of it from Liz Kruger, who is the ranking member. Senator Kruger is the ranking member on the Finance Committee. She sent out an email, and Assemblymember Kellner let all of us know that there was a whole story to this, and that's when we became aware that there was some controversy involving this appointment. In the Senate, the Democrats are in the minority, so unfortunately we do not control the agenda, we don't control the votes, and we weren't able to get the answers that we wanted to, and the appointment went through. What I've done since then, and just to backtrack a little bit, Senator Kellner immediately from that moment was reaching out to the governor's office to try to figure out, to get some clarity on what was going on, because we knew that island residents were very concerned about the non-reappointment of a very respected member of the board, and obviously there were going to be some questions, and I know that the Assembly member was very instrumental, very aggressive in trying to get those answers, and we voted against the appointment, but again, we don't have the numbers. The appointment went through. Right now, my office, Damaris Levine was my chief of staff. We've been reaching out to the governor's office, and hopefully by first thing tomorrow morning, we will have some dates for a meeting with the governor's staff to figure out exactly what the machinations were behind this entire process. And there's many questions that I know island residents will want me to ask, and we'll want the Assembly member to ask. But again, we need to get those answers as quickly as possible. Recently, I was called by a reporter for the Times-Union to ask me a bit about what was happening here. He had heard about the demonstration or rally last week and wanted to know a little bit of backstory. And I told him that, you know, this is a very serious issue for island residents, but to understand exactly why island residents are so concerned, you have to know a little bit about the history of the island. And it's really about respect. And that was really the only way that I could really put it into words. When you have so many other underlying issues that are simmering right below the surface, when you have island residents who for years have been asking for more official police presence on the island, when they've been asking for better and more adequate transportation on and off the island, when they've been fighting against chronic underfunding from sources that were said to be very supportive or should be very supportive of the island residents. Then you have this movement, which I've supported, Assemblymember Kellner and I, through our legislation, to try to bring more self-determination to the island, to give island residents more of an opportunity to have a say in who will represent them on the board. So this latest development is a major setback for that. And when you have those simmering issues that I mentioned, of course you're going to have island residents who are going to be extremely upset, who are going to feel extremely disrespected. And it is a respect issue. You know, I represent probably the most diverse Senate district in the state of New York. If you consider, I not only represent Roosevelt Island, which I love, and I pray that when redistricting happens that I'm still the representative here. But I have Yorkville, I have East Harlem, I have the South Bronx, and the West Bronx. I don't think there's any more of a diverse district than that, and I live in the South Bronx. But I love it because there are tremendous challenges, but there are certain things that are kind of similar to every part of the 28th Senate District. And it's about respect. For years in the South Bronx, we've been fighting for empowerment within our own community. We've been fighting to make sure that we have adequate housing, affordable housing, that Mitchell-Lama is preserved, that landlords are not taking advantage of us, that schools are adequately funded. And you know what? The same respect discussion applies to Roosevelt Island. I don't see how it's any different. So when you have a community that's as organized as Roosevelt Island is, when you have the leadership of Matt Katz and Sherry and many others on the island, who are not going to just sit by and let things happen, I think it bodes well for the future, but it's not going to be without a struggle. So again, I'll report back to everyone once I've had this meeting with the governor's people, and I will continue to stay in contact with Micah to find out what he's doing, because I know he's on this 24/7. Just to find a way to get to the bottom of this, to understand why the disappointment happened in the way that it did, and how it has created somewhat of a crisis of confidence going forward, and we need answers on that. Thank you.
Just because Assemblymember Kellner has another engagement to go to, and before we take any questions, can I just give him the opportunity to say a few words?